From there, you went from executive producer. You stayed in the producer line of things. It looks like
Yeah,
instead of the game design. Line of things. What changed? What changed for you to get out of being a designer? So you figure, hey, I need to step into more of a management role so I can fix the things I've seen that are problems.
Yeah, like look, okay. You know, like, and this is common, like this is common, I think, at every job, not just gaming jobs. People who are where the rubber meets the road like to blame management for everything, right? They'd be like, man, if my boss would just let me do my thing, or if I, this, and this, and this, and this. And sometimes that's true. I'd say more often than not, that's true, right? And so when I was at Game Tech in particular, I didn't think I had supportive management. And I think I had meddlesome management more so than anything else. And so so I felt like as a designer, I wasn't empowered. Maybe I had control over the horizontal, but I didn't have horizontal and vertical, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, man, if I'm in a position to like make some changes, I should do that. I should make those changes. And so I said, I'm going to do less of this design and put myself in a position where I can affect the overall health of a product. And so I started at, on the AP level, and then eventually just moving up the ranks into full production. Because what I learned is that as a producer, you could be meddlesome. Right? Like as a producer, you could say, no, don't do this, do that, and there's no one in a position to go, no, because you're the boss. Right.
Did that make it easier transitioning into that for you because of the caveats you get of being like, I said, do this. I want it green. I want it blue. Turn this over. Rotate it around. I don't like this. Or was it a hard transition because you're kind of taking the creative side to the backseat and going more in a management side to like orchestrate and be a conductor in a sense? Or was it, how did you adapt with that?
Well, I mean, the role of production has changed a lot, right? Like it has changed a lot in the time that I've been doing what I'm doing. I had teams that were like 5 people, right? So even if you had a producer hat on, you still did a lot of design. You still did a lot of that stuff, right? But it was just that you had more power to change things, right?
It sounds like at that time, what it is called now is like you were a game director pretty much, as opposed to a producer.
That's exactly
because those are 2 separate tracks now.
Yes, yeah.
When you look at people in their titles and you're like,
right.
If you're the producer, why are you trying to be the game director or the game designer? If you're a game designer, it's like, why are you acting like a producer, man? Like,
yes.
So,
yeah.
But at that time, you were able to do both.
Yeah. At that time, I mean, like when I was at Game Tech, for example, like you're the producer. That meant, QA. What's that? Nah, bruh. You test your own games. You write your own manuals. Like that's just how things were, right? And so going from it was funny, like going from Game Tech, for example, that was, the better part of, at its best, maybe 200 people internationally, to going to Acclaim that have 400 people in one location, for example. Like, when I went to Acclaim, I had like 10 people who did my job. And what I meant was 10 people who helped me do my job, not 10 people who were producers, 10 people who helped the producers. And we didn't, at Game Tech, we got happy because we got a QA person. There's a whole QA building at Acclaim, right? So I was happy that I grew up in this environment where I got to do those jobs, because I think that when you start getting up in the upper management, the more you know about how the sausage is made, I think the more effective you are, because you can be empathetic to people who are in those particular positions now, right? Some people haven't, and it's a crime. So when leaving from design to go into production, and I think this is a trap a lot of people in production get into, is they still want to do those jobs that they left instead of doing the job that they're doing, right? And on a producer side of things, your job is to empower. Your job is to enable. Your job is essentially to be that bulldozer and make everybody else's job easier so they could focus on what they're doing, right? And a lot of times, bad producers don't understand that. Like, bad producers want to still be a designer, they still want to be an artist, or they still want to do all these other
I couldn't agree more. It makes perfect sense. I've worked with a lot of people who didn't have a discipline outside of production in the industry, and they went right into production from like QA. And a lot of times from that avenue, they don't understand how long it takes to do things. They'll be given estimates that are just like to the wind, and you're like, there's no way this should take that long, but they don't know. And so you get these bloated out like pipelines or bloated out schedules for things that just make no sense, and then everybody's rubbing their head like,
how did this happen?
How are we gonna make this happen? Like, what's going on?
And I think that if you know, having sort of a good grasp, at least in one of the different aspects of game creation, will help you be a producer. I wouldn't recommend anyone be a producer. I mean, nowadays QA is so sophisticated. I believe you can come from QA.
You can because QA is it's not just about taking notes and just playing the game. Like, QA is a vital part of the success of projects.
Well, now especially, you know, you can't. I mean, the level of sophistication that we're talking about now. I mean, like, I wouldn't have the stones to be a QA person today. I mean, they're a special breed at this point, right? So, when you are a producer, I feel like you should know enough about someone's art to be a pain in the ass, right? To ask the right questions, to make sure that they get what they need, or you know, if you don't know what an animator is going through, or what an artist is going through, or what a designer is going through, what your sound guys are going through, you can't empathize. You can't, you know, or when someone gives you estimates on how long it's going to take to get from point A to point B, you can't critically kind of go, are you sure? Like, that sounds a little short, or that sounds a little long, or
it'll make it harder for you to plan and execute on what you need to do, because you're being told by one guy it's going to take him a month to do something, but other people are telling you, oh, I can get it to you next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, in particular, like, you know, not to brag on you, but I remember when we used to work together, and it really became apparent, like, you animate real fast, like you know, and with quality. No, I mean, it was pretty scary. I remember that. I remember, like, the first week that you had got there, and we gave you like this alien to animate, right? And I was, you know, and we were like, okay, so you got 5 animations, Ed. Like, you know, see you at the end of the week or whatever. And I remember that too. And like, at the end of the day, you had like 3 animations done, like, and I was like, the first day, like, what? And so the funny part was is I was like, I know this animation's trash. I just know it's garbage, right? And then I looked at it, and then at that point, you know, you would look at your other animators and you'd be like,
somebody lying up in here.
Somebody lying. Now, either Ed is the best thing since sliced bread, or, you know, like somebody got to step their game up, because he making y'all all look bad. I remember that.
I think I remember that.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh, man,
I was just
crazy.
Like, everybody knew, like, the jig was up, man. Ed came to play, right? And so for me, that's it. But that's all about production, right? All about production sometimes is, you know, I used to call it, nowadays, we you know, like, and that's the funny thing about, like, this industry now, like, we have agile, you know,
development,
agile development, right? Where you can look at velocities now, and you could tell, like, how fast people, you know, crank.
Yeah, with things. Like, I think it's like Jira, Scrum, Waterfall, all our stuff is what people are using right now.
But the funny part about all that is, it's like, you know, I used to call it like the coefficient or whatever. Like, when a particular person on the team would tell me how long it's going to take them, I used to have a little multiplier over their head, like, you know, and I'd be like, okay, so Troy says it's going to take him 10 days.
Yeah.
But I go over and look at Ed, and he's got a 0.5 multiplier. So I'm going to just, you know, so that's really 5 days worth of work, right? So it was, you know, it was crazy, but like, your instincts on the production side of things can sink or ship a product. But yeah, so you know, going from like, okay, I'm going to design something, to, okay, I'm going to produce something. For me, what it became is that I think a lot of producers think that, you know, the product is their responsibility. And I believe that the product is your responsibility, but I think it's also the side effect from managing people correctly.
Yeah.
Right.
That's important. It's important to make sure you understand each person and not kind of group them in. It'll get you a lot further faster.
When I talk to people about game development in particular, I bring up these pictures, and I said, this is what people think a development team is. And, it's this generic picture with a bunch of nerds, people with glasses and, pocket protectors and all this other kinds of stuff. And I said, what a development team really is. And then I show them a picture of a rock band, right? Something real outrageous too, like Kiss or Poison or Motley Crue or something like that, because that's truly what it is, right? Like, it's a bunch of rock stars. You don't make great products without rock stars. Now, most rock stars or most groups get into it heavily because one person doesn't respect the other person's, deal. And when you start talking about, like, for me, I go back and I think about hip hop stuff sometimes, and I think about, like, why is Run DMC awesome? Why is Outkast awesome? And it's because they took these two different sort of disciplines or two different, sort of perspectives, mashed them together and made awesome.
Yeah, they made
product,
something right? Magical, something different.
Yeah, but it's usually that creative difference that also drives people apart, right? Eventually, right?
It's straining.
Yeah,
but you got to know how to control that.
Right. So if you're a producer, that's your job. That's your job to say, hey, chocolate, respect the peanut butter, for real, right? And a lot of times it's because you don't know what the other person is going through, what it takes to actually get from point A to point B. You lack that perspective. You lack that respect. And so a producer stands in and he says, hey, man, look, it took them 3 weeks to make this tight. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, right? And that's what you do. So good production, you don't even see it. Yeah. It's like your job's awesome to go to. Yeah. Bad production, everything's out of whack. You don't know what's going on. It's
you blasting out emails without factual information.
Please, right? And so one of the things I like to do a lot of times, and because as a producer, sometimes I feel like you're a paratrooper. You get dropped behind the lines, behind enemy lines, and now you got to fight your way to the to what you got to get to. And so a lot of times in production, you get thrown into a problem or a situation that you didn't create.
But you got to solve it.
You got to solve it, right? And so one of the things I like to do, the first conversations I usually have with dev teams is I break all the disciplines up. I'll put art over here, code over here, design over here, and so on and so forth. And I go, what's this game about? Like, what's this game about?
Wait, you ask each discipline what the game is about individually or as a department to see if everybody's in the same page? Okay. Yeah, because I remember back in the day, I remember when design documents and stuff would come out, they were ever changing. And you're like, nobody's reading design documents? You're like, you got to read the design. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, no one reads.
You can't just make the stuff. You got to read it.
Right. Yeah. And so, and the funny part now is because games are so expansive now, even to write a design document now, I mean, you do, but it's more about the spirit of what that thing is, right? So when I take these disciplines and I split them up and I go, what's this about? What's it about, right? And if I get all different answers, you're screwed.
That's
right?
a good way to start.
If I get all the same answers, I go, I could work with this. I can make this happen, because you have to understand, like, everyone brings something different to the table. Once again, bringing back the sort of band metaphor, right? Like, what does it take to write a melancholy song? Like, everybody's got to be depressed. So you ask the bass player, like, give me something that's depressing. You the lead vocalist, like, give me something that's depressing. Drums, the same thing, right? Everyone's going to approach it differently. And because everyone approaches it differently, when it all comes together, it seems to mesh well because it comes from that same sort of emotional wellspring, right? And that's how to get creative people to do the damn thing.
To be in line.
They have to own it. They have to own it, because art is going to tell you how to do something that design won't, because they just don't have that.
They're different.
They're just different. But when they all go, oh man, I never knew this or I never knew that. Like an audio designer can take an elephant walk and make it traumatic or comical, right? Just with audio. Right. And the same thing, an animator could do the same thing. Right. And so once you get them aligned, that's where the magic happens, man. And so for me, I felt like, yes, I can sort of take ownership of design if I'm on the production side of things.
Right. Because you have those chops from the past to back you up.
But instead, what I want to do is I want to identify like the badass person in all of these different areas, give them ownership of this process, make sure that they're not, they're not gated or impeded in any way. Okay.
Empowering them.
Empower them, because to make a great game, you need 110%. But no one gives you 110% because you say so. They give you 110% because they want to. So your goal, your job as a producer is to make people want to, okay? Because that's when you get the extra hours. That's when you get like, someone, taking a shower and being like, oh man, that's how to make that work. Or they have to own it, because if they don't, you're going to get the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But that's not what you need to, that's what you need to make passable or good. But you won't get great at 9 to 5. Not in this business.
And people think that crunch is the way to go, which it isn't, because like you're saying, crunch is still you forcing someone or telling someone they have to be there, and you're still not gonna get that 110%.
Well, I have my stance when it comes to crunch is this: like, crunch usually, in my mind, is a fallout of bad management. You either told someone that you're going to do this by an impossible date. Okay, someone hands you an impossible date that you didn't fight back on. Yeah, that you didn't fight back on, because some of the most the two most powerful letters in a producer's repertoire are N and O, right? And that comes from all areas, even upper management, like telling them no, that will not happen. No, that is not possible, because if you kind of maybe, then you're going to find yourself in that situation. So for me, crunch is. It should be self-inflicted. And what I mean by self-inflicted is that, maybe you will have to crunch, maybe you won't. But when you are crunching, don't just crunch because I need extra hours on this game, right? Crunching is like, I'm going to take this hill. Design, animation, art, sound, code. What is it that we need to take this hill? Okay, so we'll take this hill. But everybody knows what we need to do in order to get there. That's what you crunch towards. You don't crunch because you just need more hours. You crunch because there's a clear objective that you need to do. And that shouldn't be expected. But if everybody's giving you that 110%, they understand why. Don't just crunch because...
And then it won't even be crunch at that time. It'll be like what you're saying. People are going to end up staying till 7, till 8 as a collective group. And then everybody's in the same mindset. You know what you're working on. You can pass it off because the guy is here. You're getting stuff done. You're getting it in the game. And no one said a word about crunch. You just noticed that, oh shit, people are excited and they're getting their work done.
Well, so that's the thing. When you say, to me, I found that the word no, like, and I tell people all the time, that's like my favorite word. I'll wake up from a deep sleep and no, like, that's.
I'm surprised you don't have a card in your wallet that just says no on it, and you be flashing it around work like, boom,
no,
this one's yours, and that one's yours.
No, not gonna do it, nah, bruh. So in my mind, the only more effective word in production, or words in production rather than no is thank you. People don't realize how important thank you is. If people are crunching, even if it's mentally, like, and then they do something big, or they do something they thought they couldn't do, just say thank you. I see you. Thank you. right? Because a lot of times, man, like people don't necessarily need a raise. They don't need this or that. They need to just know that they're respected. They just need to know that their hard work is recognized. And so when you take someone to the side and say, thanks, I appreciate you, or even publicly, like, yo, girl, you did the damn thing, like, so everybody knows. That's all most people need in order to feel like, okay, I matter. And when you've got these games now that, I mean, I talk about, when I started, man, teams used to be 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Who makes games with 5 people now?
I think only mobile or those garage indie type people. But again, they're still coming together with like a crazy skill set of wearing multiple hats, and it's still very rare to have a team that small be successful. We're not talking about just getting together on the weekends and then just chilling and hopefully something comes out of it. It's very rare to find a group of 5 people.
Yeah, and so that's why. So that's why being able to publicly acknowledge people for successes inside of these large groups are important, because I'm telling you, like, sometimes like it would amaze me in bigger teams how you could have people who sit right next to one another, never talk. Mm-hmm. Even though their work is directly affecting one another. They'd be
look over like, hey, that's my foul, but I'm not gonna say anything. I wonder if he likes it or not. Let me see.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I have found at the end of the day that when I take care of my people in production, the project does itself. Like, the project makes itself. And all you have to do from a production standpoint is make sure that, those people are the right people in those spots, right? Like, this person's the lead designer. He's the lead animator, the lead artist, the lead coder, or whatever. Like, make sure those people are quality. Give them air cover. Make sure that they're mentally in the right space and they're empowered. And as a producer, you got a lot less work.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is take care of them, and they take care of you, and they take care of the project.